Imagine a World Cup where the biggest shock in football history could never happen again, erased quietly by a decision made in a boardroom. What if the most beautiful thing about the World Cup, the underdog beating a giant, was slowly being designed out of the tournament forever? In 2026, football is about to change in a way most fans have not even noticed yet. 48 teams will step onto the pitch, more than ever before in the history of the game. More flags, more stories, more countries, dreaming of glory on the biggest stage football has ever built. But hidden inside this historic expansion is a format so different, so mathematically complex, that it could quietly kill the very magic that made the World Cup legendary. This is the story of how football's biggest tournament might accidentally destroy its most powerful tradition, the underdog story. Stick with us, because by the end of this video, you will see the World Cup completely differently. Before we go further, let us understand where this all began and why it matters so deeply to every football fan alive today. For almost a century, the World Cup has told the same beautiful story over and over again, without fail. A small nation with no money, no stars, and no expectations walks onto the same field as football royalty and somehow wins. Senegal shocked France in 2002 as defending champions fell to their former colony in the opening match of the tournament. South Korea reached the semifinals in 2002, beating Italy and Spain on their own home soil in front of a stunned nation. Cameroon defeated defending champions, Argentina in 1990, announcing African football to the entire watching world in one unforgettable, historic night. Saudi Arabia stunned Argentina in Qatar 2022, delivering one of the most shocking opening match results in modern World Cup history. These moments are not just results, they are the emotional heartbeat of why billions of people fall in love with football. Every 4 years, the 2026 World Cup will feature the United States, Mexico, and Canada as joint hosts, an unprecedented three-nation collaboration in tournament history. FIFA expanded the format from 32 teams to 48, promising more inclusion, more nations, and more opportunities for football's smaller countries to shine. On paper, this sounds like a genuine dream come true for underdog nations who previously never even qualified for the tournament. Nations across Africa, Asia, and Oceania now have significantly more qualification slots, opening doors that remain firmly closed for decades. Football fans in these regions have waited generations for opportunities like this, making the emotional stakes of this expansion incredibly high for millions of people. More teams should logically mean more chances for shocking upsets, more Cinderella stories, and more history being written on the world stage. But the deeper you look into how these 48 teams are actually structured into groups and knockout rounds, the more complicated this promise becomes. This is not the first time football has expanded its biggest tournament, and history offers us valuable warning signs worth remembering. The World Cup grew from 16 teams to 24 in 1982, and then to 32 teams in 1998, changing football forever. Each expansion promised more inclusion and more opportunity, yet each expansion also sparked genuine debate about diluted competition and quality. The European Championship expanded from 16 to 24 teams in 2016, and pundits immediately debated whether this weakened the tournament's overall quality. France still won that tournament as heavy favorites, yet several so-called weaker nations produced surprisingly strong, memorable performances throughout. Wales reached the semifinals in that expanded tournament, proving that more teams can sometimes still produce genuinely inspiring underdog stories. This gives us a real historical case study to compare against as we approach the massive 2026 World Cup expansion. Here is where the real problem begins, hidden deep inside the mathematics of the brand new tournament format itself. Instead of 8 groups of 4 teams like the classic World Cup format fans have known for decades, 2026 introduces 12 separate groups of 4 teams. From these 12 groups, the top 2 teams automatically advance, along with 8 best third-place teams selected from across the entire tournament. This means 32 teams advance out of 48 total participants, an enormous 67% of the entire tournament, reaching the knockout stage. Compare that to the old format, where only 16 out of 32 teams advanced, exactly 50%. Moving forward into the knockout rounds, this dramatic increase in advancement percentage fundamentally changes what a shock result actually means inside the tournament structure. In the old format, losing your opening match was often a tournament-ending disaster with almost no room for genuine recovery. In the new format, a team can lose their very first game and still comfortably qualify for the knockout stage. This safety net sounds player-friendly, but it quietly removes the desperation that made group stage matches must-watch television. When there is no real danger of elimination, do teams still fight with the same hunger that created football's greatest underdog stories? Many football analysts argue that meaningless, low-stakes group matches will become far more common across the expanded 48-team format. A shock underdog win in Game 1 no longer eliminates the giant. It simply becomes an inconvenient headline with little lasting consequence. This is the hidden mathematical shift that could quietly reshape the emotional identity of the entire tournament. There is even more complexity buried inside this system, since determining which 8 third-place teams actually qualify involves complicated tiebreaker calculations, goal difference, total goals scored, disciplinary records, and even head-to-head results across 12 different groups all factor into these calculations. This means a team's fate might depend not just on their own results, but on results happening in completely unrelated matches elsewhere. Fans could watch their team win convincingly, only to be eliminated hours later because of a tiebreaker scenario in a different group entirely. This level of mathematical complexity was never present in the simpler 32-team format most football fans grew up watching and understanding. Some critics argue this confusing system actually harms fan engagement, since casual viewers struggle to understand exactly how qualification scenarios unfold in real time. Let us look at how this actually plays out using real tournament logic and simple, easy-to-understand mathematics. Imagine a group containing Brazil, a mid-tier European nation, an African debutante, and an Asian qualifier making their World Cup return. Under the old 32-team format, Brazil losing their opening match created genuine panic, since only the top 2 teams advanced. Every single match carried enormous weight because one bad result could end an entire nation's World Cup dream in 90 minutes. Under the new 48-team format, Brazil can lose game 1 and still qualify by simply winning their remaining 2 matches. Even losing 2 out of 3 group matches might still be enough if enough other third-place teams perform poorly elsewhere. This mathematical cushion transforms must-win matches into cautious, calculated performances where giants rarely panic like they used to. The beautiful chaos that once defined World Cup group stages risks being replaced by predictable, low-risk football decisions. Coaches of powerful footballing nations can now rotate their star players without fearing catastrophic elimination from one single unlucky result. This strategic rotation, while smart for player fitness and long-term planning, reduces the intensity that made shock results feel truly shocking. When giants play it safe instead of desperate, underdog nations lose their greatest weapon, the panic and fear of elite opponents. Fear was always the underdog's best friend, and this new format quietly removes that fear from the equation entirely. There is another hidden layer to this problem, something football fans rarely discuss when talking about tournament expansion and format changes. With 48 teams, the overall talent gap between the strongest and weakest nations naturally becomes wider than ever before. Some newly qualified nations may simply lack the experience or squad depth to compete at the very highest level. This could actually lead to more lopsided scorelines in early matches, ironically making some group games far less competitive overall. FIFA's own qualification pathways were adjusted to accommodate more continental slots, meaning some historically weaker footballing regions gained additional spots. While this promotes inclusion and global growth, critics argue it may dilute the average quality of group stage football overall. A tournament with more blowout victories and fewer genuine shocks could paradoxically feel less exciting despite having far more matches. This creates a strange contradiction: more countries participating, yet potentially fewer moments of pure, unpredictable footballing magic and surprise. There is also the matter of physical geography, since matches across the United States, Mexico, and Canada involve enormous, exhausting travel distances. Teams could play group matches thousands of miles apart, facing dramatically different climates, altitudes, and time zones within a single group stage. This logistical nightmare may actually favor wealthier football federations with better private travel, recovery staff, and advanced sports science resources available. Smaller nations with limited budgets could struggle far more with jet lag, fatigue, and recovery time between demanding matches. Ironically, an expansion designed to include smaller nations might inadvertently punish them through exhausting logistics that only wealthy federations can properly manage. This hidden inequality rarely appears in headlines, yet it could quietly influence results just as much as the format itself. Fans traveling to matches will also face incredible logistical challenges, with some fixtures separated by entire countries and multiple time zones. FIFA has defended the sprawling host city selection as necessary for accommodating the sheer scale of a 48-team tournament. Yet many football purists argue that a truly fair tournament should never place some teams at such significant geographical and logistical disadvantage. This debate about fairness extends far beyond simple format mathematics into the very physical structure of the tournament itself. Fans watching from home will notice these travel challenges too, as broadcasters highlight the grueling distances between host cities during pre-match analysis. Commentators will likely discuss altitude, heat, and travel fatigue constantly throughout the tournament, educating casual viewers about factors previously invisible in smaller single-country tournaments. Now let us explore some genuinely fascinating facts that reveal just how dramatically football's landscape is shifting heading into 2026. The 2026 World Cup will feature 104 total matches, nearly double the 64 matches played in Qatar back in 2022. This means significantly more football content, more advertising revenue, and more broadcasting opportunities for FIFA and its many global partners. Critics argue this expansion prioritizes financial growth over competitive integrity, favoring commercial interests above the pure sporting spirit of competition. FIFA President Gianni Infantino has repeatedly defended the expansion as a tool for global growth and increased footballing inclusion worldwide. Nations like Jordan qualified for their very first World Cup appearance, representing genuine progress for football development across previously underrepresented regions. However, historical data from expanded tournaments in other sports often shows a decline in dramatic upsets. As more teams qualify overall, the Rugby World Cup expanded its format decades ago, and statisticians noted a measurable decrease in shocking results across subsequent editions of the tournament. Basketball's expanded international tournaments show remarkably similar patterns, where more qualifying spots often correlate with fewer genuine underdog victories overall. Interestingly, some football historians argue the opposite could happen, since more debutant nations might create entirely new underdog stories nobody has witnessed before. Nations like Cape Verde or Suriname could potentially qualify for the very first time, offering fresh emotional narratives previously impossible under the smaller format. The total prize money for 2026 is expected to significantly exceed previous tournaments, reflecting the massive commercial scale of this expanded event. Stadium capacities across the United States, some exceeding 80,000 seats, will create an atmosphere unlike anything football has ever experienced before. Ticket demand for 2026 has already broken previous records, with millions of fans applying for tickets before the official sales even began. The tournament will span an astonishing 39 days, making it the longest World Cup in the competition's entire history. More matches also means more opportunities for injuries, fatigue, and squad rotation, fundamentally changing how coaches approach tactical planning overall. Some coaches have already publicly stated they will prioritize player welfare over aggressive tactics during meaningless, low-stakes group stage matches. This shift in coaching philosophy could further reduce dramatic moments, since cautious football rarely produces the chaos that creates legendary underdog stories. Meanwhile, television audiences are expected to exceed 5 billion viewers globally, making this the most watched sporting event in human history. Sponsorship deals have reportedly reached record-breaking figures, reflecting just how much financial value FIFA places on this expanded, historic tournament. The final will be played at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, a venue capable of hosting over 82,000 passionate football fans. Mexico's Estadio Azteca becomes the first stadium ever to host matches across 3 separate World Cup tournaments, an incredible piece of footballing history. Canada will host World Cup matches for the very first time, introducing an entirely new fan base to the global spectacle of football. 16 host cities across 3 countries means fans and teams alike will experience an unprecedented variety of cultures, climates, and atmospheres. Some matches will be played in scorching summer heat exceeding 100 degrees Fahrenheit, adding another physical challenge for competing teams. Altitude differences between host cities could also significantly impact player performance, since oxygen levels vary dramatically across different regions and elevations. Travel fatigue combined with these extreme climate variations could genuinely reshape which teams perform best across the grueling 39-day tournament schedule. The truth likely lies somewhere between both extremes, with format mathematics reducing panic while new nations simultaneously create fresh emotional moments. Let us remember a few more legendary underdog moments that remind us exactly what football stands to lose in this new format. North Korea shocked Italy in 1966, eliminating the mighty Italians in one of football's earliest recorded major upsets. Costa Rica reached the quarterfinals in 2014, defeating both Italy and Uruguay in what became known as the Group of Death. Iceland, a nation of just over 300,000 people, reached the quarterfinals of Euro 2016, stunning England along the way. These stories became legendary precisely because the stakes were absolute. One loss meant elimination, and every match carried life or death intensity. Without that intensity, would Iceland's incredible run have felt nearly as magical, or would it have simply been another forgettable group stage result? This is the emotional core of what critics fear losing. Not the participation of small nations, but the desperate intensity that created legends. Football fans do not simply want more teams, they want more moments where the impossible genuinely feels within reach. So why does any of this actually matter to ordinary football fans? Watching from their homes around the world, the underdog story is not simply entertainment, it represents hope, proof that effort and belief can overcome money and reputation. When Senegal beat France, children across Africa watched and genuinely believed their own dreams of football glory were finally possible. When these shocking moments disappear or become diluted, football risks losing its most powerful storytelling tool, the impossible becoming reality. Broadcasters, sponsors, and FIFA all benefit financially from more matches, more countries participating, and longer, far more profitable tournament structures overall. But fans watch football for emotion, unpredictability, and the pure drama of witnessing history unfold in real time. If every match becomes a calculated, safe decision with minimal genuine risk, football slowly transforms into a predictable, sanitized business product. The soul of the World Cup has always been uncertainty, the beautiful chaos where anything could happen on any given match day. Protecting that uncertainty, that genuine risk of elimination, may be more important than simply adding more teams and matches. This is not necessarily a criticism of expansion itself, but a serious question about how expansion is mathematically structured overall. Football fans deserve a tournament that rewards courage and punishes complacency, not one that quietly protects its biggest, wealthiest nations from consequence. Think about the last time you watched a match knowing that absolutely everything was on the line, your heart racing with every single touch. That feeling, that shared nervous energy between millions of strangers watching the same broadcast is what makes football different from every other sport. If FIFA's new format reduces how often that feeling occurs, something precious is lost. Even while ticket sales and revenue continue climbing higher, young fans discovering football for the first time in 2026 deserve to experience that same electric tension that hooked previous generations of supporters. The World Cup is often a child's first real introduction to global culture, geography, and the shared human experience of hope and heartbreak. If the format quietly protects giants and punishes genuine risk, future generations may never fully understand why underdog stories once meant so much. This is why football fans, journalists, and analysts continue debating this format so passionately across social media and sports broadcasts worldwide. As we approach the 2026 World Cup football, fans everywhere face a genuinely fascinating and uncertain question about the sport's future direction. Will the new 48-team format create incredible new underdog stories we have genuinely never witnessed before in football history? Or will it quietly protect football's giants, reducing the beautiful chaos that made this tournament the greatest show on earth? Only time and the actual matches themselves will reveal whether this historic expansion helps or harms football's most cherished tradition. One thing remains absolutely certain: the entire footballing world will be watching every single match with incredibly close attention. The story of underdogs versus giants has defined the World Cup for nearly a century, and 2026 will genuinely test that legacy. Whatever happens, this tournament will be remembered as the moment football's format fundamentally changed forever, for better or for worse. History is watching, and so are millions of fans who still believe that anything can happen in football. No matter the mathematics. Perhaps the truth is that football will always find a way to surprise us, format changes or not, because passion cannot be calculated, Every generation of fans worries their era of football is losing something precious, yet somehow the magic always finds a way to return. Maybe 2026 will give us a shock so enormous that this entire debate becomes irrelevant, buried beneath one unforgettable, historic moment. Maybe a nation nobody expects will rise up, ignore the mathematics, and remind the entire world why we fell in love with football. Or maybe the critics are right, and we will look back on 2026 as the tournament where safety quietly replaced desperation forever. Either way, this format will be studied, debated, and remembered for decades as one of football's most significant structural turning points. The next time you watch a World Cup match, pay close attention to how each team actually approaches risk and desperation. You might notice this hidden mathematical shift playing out in real time, shaping decisions you never realized were happening. If this video helped you understand the hidden complexity behind the 2026 World Cup format, make sure you subscribe for more deep football analysis. Drop a comment below and tell us which underdog moment in World Cup history remains your absolute favorite of all time. Share this video with a friend who loves football, because this conversation about fairness and format truly deserves a much wider audience. See you in the next video, where we break down another hidden story behind the biggest tournament in football history. Until then, keep believing in the underdog, because football, at its very core, has always belonged to the dreamers who refuse to accept the odds.